I see you. I see you, sir. Mm. So
And I
today,
raise you busted.
I raised you a busted, yeah. You thought you were so cute, didn't you? That's so funny. Well, everyone watching on Twitch, welcome to the talk show.
Hi, listen to C4 die.
Again, just like every other week.
Yeah.
Inside, as we do the talk show.
This
I
time
was
you
talking
just
about on
get
the
to see
outside.
it.
That also a little bit, one step at a time. Hey, there we go. Now we're live on the YouTubes.
You can watch the life drain from his eyes.
I still don't
Alrighty.
know what's going on in YouTube. I don't know.
We're still not live on YouTube.
YouTube hates you.
We're live on YouTube.
It's
I'm
more
looking
like
at it,
I
we're
just.
not.
I'm so.
It says waiting for.
It's live on my end.
Creepy.
And then
Anyway.
Twitch is going.
Reload it.
Welcome to the
Hello,
talk show.
everyone. I'm sorry we are late. Welcome to the Villains
We
Talk
wouldn't be
Show.
the Villains Talk Show if we weren't a little bit late once in a while.
How is
We're
everyone
so
tonight?
organized.
Am I
Solidly alive. That's how I am.
Bursting with fruit flavor.
No, I'm not laggy.
I thought
God
that was a
damn.
normal Tuesday.
There's so many problems tonight.
That's every
What's
day,
with
kid.
All the problems.
No, sometimes it's vegetable flavor.
All the
Vegetable
problems.
flavor problems.
Most
True,
of the
you
time
gotta
for
make
you,
that
Anyway.
sometimes.
Hello and welcome to
At
the
least it's
Villains
not
Talk Show
grease
and Podcast.
Yeah,
We are the
exactly.
villain. I am C4.
At least it's better than just
Beside
being
me is
salty.
Greasy Boy. Further down is
We're
Sarah
just like
Mike.
being stuck to some one number. all the
Below
time.
me
That's
is
Oh, yeah.
the Elusive Gentleman, and across from me is Insaniac, and we are here to
we are
talk
here.
about
Are we here?
random
I don't know.
No, we're there.
random bullshit that apparently
Yes,
you
we
out in cyberspace listen to. So we provide the bullshit that you then shovel into your ear holes, and we have a mutual relationship. We do it for free, and you consume it for free. It's a beautiful cycle.
If you could check out
Perfectly willing
Buzzsprout
to do
if
it
you
for
want
money,
if you want to
though.
start your own podcast, be sure to check them out. It's a wonderful platform, and we get our setup on Buzzsprout. And yeah, you could do it today. You could be your own talk show and podcast, just like us. And we all
Or-
appreciate all of you who do.
Or you could just, you could like or whatever, or like join.
Like, follow, subscribe,
Do all
Yeah,
the
that
things.
the
stuff.
pander,
Obey and follow.
pander,
us.
pander,
The
pander,
pander button.
pander
Welcome to the
buttons.
Minions
We
Hub.
still need the
I
pen.
really, really want the pander button to be like a panda, so we can.
That
hit
could
the panda
that could be
button.
something once we get like custom Twitch emojis. That could be like everyone will just tell all the Twitch people to hit the pander button, and it'll just be a bunch of pander buttons in the
I
chat.
hope so. And then the last thing I got to shout out is our only Patreon at the Minion Hub, and that is For the Wheel. Thank you
Currently,
for the
we
only
will
one
appreciate you so
who
much.
actually supports us,
If
like
you feel-
financially. I, you know what? I don't know how, but it happened.
Appreciate you, wonderful people. If you feel the need and want to be a minion today, check it out. Join our Patreon. We love you so much. If you do,
Now-
we'll shout you out and talk about you like you're a wonderful human being, because you are.
Pandering done. Today we're yes, the title suggests.
We have a title?
I'm actually super excited for this one. To be really honest,
It's gonna be so good.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be so good. We're
And by good, we mean
um,
terrible.
so I
we
wrote-
are awful with
I
titles.
wrote the title as bad parenting advice
I
because
saw that.
I need it to cover what we actually are talking about, which is we're telling fucking parents how to raise their goddamn shits that they call children.
I am definitely just speaking from personal experience. I would not recommend following our advice to the
Always follow our
Villains,
advice.
villains disclaimer here and there, things and stuff. Don't do the stuff that we say on live TV because
No.
it might hurt you. Blah blah blah.
Fuck that. I worked at a daycare. I know what those little shits are like. I'm
Yeah.
I'm ready to unload some parenting.
I mean,
advice
I've
on these horrible
I've been a little
parents.
shit once or twice, so I think I have an idea of what
Are
that
you
looks
sure?
like.
Just
Once or twice.
Once or
Twice an
once
hour,
or twice,
maybe.
that is definitely for sure. Maybe at least an hour out of my day. Probably every day.
That sounds like an hour you weren't, and that's probably when
No,
you
that
were
I am.
sleeping. Actually, I could
No,
see
that's-
you
that's
still
what I
being a
am.
shit while you were sleeping.
I could.
No, because then I'd have to clean my bed sheets all the time. That wouldn't be good.
Ba-doop boop. Toilet humor.
So-
Oh, thank you. I'm happy somebody got my dad joke.
Insaniac plays a parent in D&D, and he's terrible.
Oh, he's the
I
best.
that
parent.
didn't make
sign,
sense.
I didn't sign up for that, and
I'm
I,
not-
had I had a choice, I don't think I would have ever been the
Playing a
parent of a party
parent's
member.
different.
My fucking god.
I'm not talking
My
about playing a
mind has
parent.
been blown.
I'm talking about parents that are just shit parents. That you watch their child as they're in a department store scream and run around and like just act like an absolute animal, and the parent does nothing. And as soon as you say anything to
Yeah.
a child, they get mad at you, and you're
Yeah,
like,
because they're starved for
No,
their
that's what I'm
desperate,
talking about.
unattentive
I'm talking
parents.
about I'm talking about the horrible
So he's
people.
talking about the parents
Pay
get mad at you.
attention to me.
I'm
Pay
talking about the
attention to me, Mom.
I'm talking about the parents that Sarah dreads to see at parent-teacher interviews because she knows
yeah.
nothing she's gonna say is gonna
Will
make
make
them
them
have
happy.
a better
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
No, it's just a reflection of themselves, honestly.
Right.
When you see a kid that can't figure their shit out, it's usually because their parent can't either.
That's what I want to talk
True.
about. Those people.
It's true.
The people that have
Those are just
children
people.
and they probably shouldn't have had children.
Yeah, the people that have kids to make like a marriage better, it usually doesn't work. From what I've seen, most of the
That's the
time.
worst.
You see,
Yeah.
that's an assumption. People having a child to make
So
the
I said
marriage
most
better.
of the time. You're
That-
absolutely
that's
right.
so
as an
many people
assumption.
do it.
Nowadays, it's more like they have a child when they shouldn't have because mommy or
That's
daddy
also
didn't
true.
wear a condom.
Not really actually. Unplanned pregnancies are going down.
That's fair. I was not.
It's
aware of
actually really common for people to have a baby to fix their marriage, hoping that it'll make things
Fix-
better, and it never
that.
does.
It never
That's-
does.
That doesn't help.
It
That just makes
tears
everything worse because
everything
now
apart.
suddenly you have the same problems plus a tiny human to take care of plus no sleep.
And this tiny
Right.
human who does not want
And then
to
you
be a
raise
part
the
of your
tiny
problems.
human to be an absolute menace to society.
Yep.
Because he raises to be pissed at his mom, pissed at his dad, or they. Sorry, I shouldn't assume it's a he, because that wouldn't be very nice.
Or
But
they're
they-
raised with their listening to their parents fight all the time.
Exactly. And
So,
then they go out
advice
and scream
number
and yell at
one.
people. They become Karens. They become Karens when they go out into the
Don't have
world.
children.
Advice number one:
so wait.
don't have a kid to save your marriage.
Exactly. Advice rule number one.
That's a good.
Don't
that's a good
have a
advice.
fucking kid to save
Advice
your
rule.
marriage.
This is actually
Because
good advice so far, though.
You
A
are
good advice rule.
you are because if you do that, I don't care if you're a male or a female. If you're deciding to have a kid to save your marriage, there is nothing about that screams you aren't a piece of shit.
Or that your marriage is failing.
No. I don't want because I don't want anyone listening to get any kind of idea like, oh no, it could work in this facet. No.
No.
Every angle makes you a piece of shit. And if you're
I
thinking
wanna-
like that, you should really turn your thinking around and be like, why am I such a natural piece of shit?
I really want everyone's attention for our viewers listening. Please tell us in the comment how much we aren't parents and how we don't know anything about what we're talking about. It would make our day.
Watch us give like
Because
some of the
the best part about
advice,
being
though.
not a parent is the fact that like just because I'm not
Not
a
a
parent
parent?
doesn't mean you can't see that a bad parent
You
is.
know what?
You know?
But we are the people that are most affected by those pieces of shit because
Oh,
another
a lot of
parent
the
time,
does
yeah.
not care about another child. Really, it's us.
Oh, yeah, you
the
can see
people
it.
without kids who absolutely loathe when we see a child walk into that store and start crying, and you're like, dude, fucking just backhand the bitch and tell her to shut the fuck up. Like-
To quote Stephen Hofstetter, just because there's a plane in the tree, that doesn't mean that the person in the plane fucked up. That was clearly the pilot. That was pilot error. That plane should not be in that tree. That was a mistake on the person leading the plane.
Yeah. Yeah, I never want to have kids, and every time I go into a store and see a child pitching a fit, it just reinforces like, nope, never happening.
I love that you
So
work in a
parents who
school.
don't care for the
Your
kids.
job is to educate children, but the last thing you want is children. Like it's
Yeah.
just an absolute.
They're
The
okay
double
once they're like
entendre.
11. Until then, it's just hell.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I used to babysit.
Also,
for
you know
money.
what's really great about
I never had to babysit.
getting to spend time with kids but not being their parent? When they get annoying, you can give them back to their parent.
That's
Dude,
probably one of the
what?
nicer things
When
about being a
I-
teacher.
So I worked at a daycare during Stampede, and the way it worked is parents were not allowed to drop off their kids. So the parents were there the whole time when we did like activities with their kids, right? But there were big signs the whole time that would always say, "Oh, now everyone has their camera off, you bastards." There was big signs that
Something you
say,
could give me if I turn mine on.
do not leave your kid here. Do not leave your kid unattended. So on and so forth, right? And people would leave like their 5-year-old to like 4-year-old children alone and just walk away.
Yeah.
And
That sounds about right.
we're like,
People are crazy.
are you fucking kidding us? Like, we're like 16, 17-year-olds. What are you expecting us to look after? You're a fucking baby? And it was unbelievable some of the things that people would some of the parents would say to their kids. Or like 9 times out of 10, because there were fights. Like like every so often you'd have to pull kids away from each other, but be honest, kids always played nice with each other. They just want to play. Parents though, fucking like you'd always have one parent who just starts all of a sudden out of nowhere. The kids are playing nice. One parent will turn to another and be like, "Your kid just stole this from my child," and they just start fucking screaming. And so our supervisor always had security on speed dial because us and the bar, Nashville North, we'd have the most fights between the parents and their children and the fucking drunks. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, at the Stampede, a lot of the parents probably are the drunks as well.
That's what makes it better.
So you probably have a lot of overlap there.
You can't talk to my
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Vomits everywhere. It's pancake breakfast.
The pancake breakfast.
Never doing it again. Go ahead, Jimmy, let's go home. It's time to get
So
the train.
my husband worked at the Lego store for a few years in a big mall, like the biggest mall in our area. And he had a few cases of kids just being abandoned there. And at one point, they actually had to call like mall security and CPS, and it was this whole like multi-hour long ordeal because a child was left there for hours. And it turned out that this like 8-year-old had walked across a super busy street to get there alone, and their parents were totally on board with it. And there's tons of like kidnappings and abductions from there too. It was just wild.
Wait,
Yeah,
from
parents just don't even care until like shit goes wild and they're like, oh no.
Yep.
Like, so
from Legoland? Like from the Lego store?
Yeah, like in
Yeah.
Chinook,
yeah, man.
That's wild.
right?
That surprises
That
you.
doesn't surprise me.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm surprised, actually.
Shit like that happens right
I
out in the
want
open,
it to
man.
surprise
No,
me.
no,
Yeah.
no,
but
no,
it
no, no, no,
doesn't.
not the abductions. Guys, not the abductions. That's
Not just
stuff-
that. No,
that
parents
doesn't
leaving their
surprise me.
kids there.
It's the parents.
That doesn't surprise me.
Like,
that doesn't
yeah.
surprise me either.
This is why we give. Yeah, this is why I did this topic. Like, you
Yeah, they're
cannot
like, oh,
tell
you're
me
at the Lego store. I
am
can leave you
not
alone
allowed
and I
to
won't
give
remember.
you
I won't forget
motherfucking
about it.
advice. If you're gonna leave your motherfucking child at a Lego store, fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
that's
Yeah,
pretty
no.
fucking
Any
crazy.
store along those lines.
Yeah,
Really.
if
at
you
that
should
point,
not be
I have
like
every
leaving your
fucking
kid.
right to give you advice.
That's
Like,
like
the Lego
probably
store
less
is
than a few.
not a
like,
babysitter.
yeah,
No.
any kid above. I'm gonna make a general kind of idea, and I'm gonna be
So
probably
fucked.
wildly off. But at least 8 to 9 years old, you should probably be well within your children most of the time, of whatever the fuck they're doing. Just because it's being paired. Just
Dude,
just care about your kids. That's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it. That's it. It's really
Like
not
at that
hard.
age, they're still so young.
Yeah, at least. I had to stay on my own when I was a kid like that, like
I
9 or 10.
mean,
But I had an older brother. I had other
it's
people.
okay if
it's
like I understand if like you they're outside in the backyard. If you have an older child who's maybe like 13 or 14,
Yeah.
taking them to the park, you know what I mean? Like you take precautions. Like you don't have to be so like tight-fisted over your goddamn child. You wear a leash on them, but
You shouldn't be.
you
Fuck,
should at least
man.
have eyes on your
like,
kids for the
fuck,
most part.
man,
Yeah. At the very least, just see them once in a
You
while.
might
And
as
be
well
like,
just
all right, they're
staple
Yeah, you
steel
don't
me
send them
on
to
their
a security mall alone.
back.
yeah, it's wild. I don't understand. And like you have like those kids nowadays that are turning into carrots too, that are like screaming and yelling at people for like that are just doing their own things as they
Do you
walk
say
down the
they're
street. I don't
turning
know if
into
you see that.
carrots? Because
Yeah, no,
I
Karens,
agree.
carrots too. Yeah, little
Oh,
carrots.
I
Karens, little
said
Karens can be a
carrots.
carrot.
I keep thinking
That- That could work too.
They're turned into carrots. A mixture of Karens and children.
That's exactly that works too. That's exactly we can call
You know
them
what?
that now.
We're
Little,
gonna coin
little
that
carrots.
term right now.
Yeah.
If they're
If
both
you
a
meet a little
child
child
and
and a
a Karen,
Karen, There
They're
are
carrots.
With a K.
They're carrots.
Like a Kakarot.
Goddamn
They're little
carrots.
Yeah, and those kids, like, you just do anything and they snap. You know, like that Listen Linda kid, right? Like that video's hilarious, but that kid is gonna be sassy as fuck when he grows up. Like you can just tell, right? Because he's just not no shit's given. He's no.
Listen, Linda. Listen,
Yeah.
Linda.
Right? It's so funny, but like, how can you take that seriously? And how is that kid ever gonna like really be in a regular conversation ever again? And people are gonna be like, listen, no, you listen, no, listen, listen. Like, really? He's now a meme star that's never gonna get away from that.
It's like the guy who did Chocolate Rain. Think about
Exactly.
everywhere he goes, even when he has children, they'll be like, hey,
Chocolate Rain.
you have to sing the song.
Right? Oh, yeah. Or the Nan guy, right? Or the Maya
But
guy.
That's the plague of having famous people.
The
as
Maya
parents.
Maya guy, yeah.
Yeah.
Or
But-
Newman.
Although,
the South
don't
Park
get me
episode,
wrong,
right?
just because you're famous
I've
doesn't
got
mean you can't
over
be a
2
shit
million
parent.
theoretical dollars. My net worth is theoretically over $1 billion.
Well, if we're going by that, then Laughing Baby is worth over 14 billion theoretical dollars. Damn you, Laughing Baby! Always laughing at me. Yeah, but don't think famous people get away from that. In fact, fuck, they're so like. Remember when I almost said the word. When that horrible.
Don't trip over your tongue now.
Trying to think of a way to. Oh, I hate Michael Jackson. I try to think of a more creative way to call him a piece of shit in different ways. But remember when that piece of shit
That pop star.
took his baby and like dangled it outside of a balcony?
Like the Lion King, yeah.
Blanket.
Yeah. Yeah.
The people blanket. Yeah, that was a little wild.
There's a lot
Michael
of
Jackson
shit.
Michael Jackson was a strange time in history. I'm gonna be honest. He was a great singer, but what the fuck was going on in his head?
Tell that to all the kids he touched.
That's why I said, what was going on in his head? His music was cool, but what the fuck was going on in his mind? You know, like I don't know. He wasn't okay. He was okay, but he was not.
Billie Jean was not his lover because she was over 18.
That's quite possibly true. I'm
thriller.
gonna leave that as a speculation at that.
You don't. I'm just gonna
I-
say you don't settle on a court over child.
I was
over
too young for that.
charges of pedophilia. You do not settle on
Yeah.
a court. That is something you
that's
fight.
kind of,
You fight to the end if you're innocent. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But he's not the
that's a
only
good
one.
point.
Imagine being like fucking Tom Cruise's kids.
Britney or like Britney Spears' kids, when she was going through her fucking breakdown,
Yeah, like
right?
imagine
When she
being.
shaved her head.
But at least Britney, like, I would say, I mean, no one knows, but the documentary and stuff, it looks like she's made a turnaround. She's no longer
so.
under her dad's thumb. They took away that order, so she blah blah blah. But I'm thinking more like think of Tom Cruise, right? You're a Scientologist. You're fucking nuts.
Yeah.
You're fucking nuts.
You divorced 5 women, and you have like 3 or 4 kids. Like I
Yeah,
wonder
I
if
think
they even
fame- I
see
think-
him. They probably.
I think fame just breaks people at a certain point, and having that
Yeah.
much kind
No,
of idea, you just
because
goes to your
there's
mind.
a lot. No, there's a lot of famous people who do not turn into fucking.
Those are the ones that are not in the limelight
so
all the
sure,
time.
yeah. Maybe like Keanu Reeves. He's
like,
the
look
only
at-
one I could kind of say that confidently.
Ryan Reynolds
He's a nice guy.
seems
Ryan
really
Reynolds is a
sane.
good guy.
Look at
I would say.
Richard
I don't know
Gere.
him personally, but
Okay, Richard Gere, the star of Chicago and a bunch of movies, he decided to take 10 years off acting for his own mental health. That's called a smart
that's
actor.
good.
That's
Yeah.
that
absolutely.
also says that acting's not good for your mental health.
Exactly right. If you're in it too
Well, yeah,
long,
no,
you
that-
go crazy.
look,
Acting's not good for your
Look
mental
what
health.
happened to
If
poor
you
Heath
look-
Ledger. He
Yeah, I
broke.
was gonna say, if you look at some of the poor actors that have broke on the way, like Heath, and there was another one. I'm gonna call out to this isn't exactly acting, but it's a type of acting to wrestling when Chris Benoit had a very very dark turn.
Yeah,
I had
dude.
I had
That
tickets
was
to that
acting.
wrestling.
That was technically
Yeah.
acting.
I had tickets to that show, and it got canceled for
Shout out
that.
to the
And like
Hitman.
I can't, I don't know what happened to them,
And-
but that he lost his mind too.
Oh wait,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
not talking about the Hitman heart. You're talking about yeah.
No, he's talking about Chris Benoit.
When he
Yeah.
went crazy and murdered
Ooh.
his family.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one.
he
Ooh,
did it
yikes.
savagely too. He fucking beat his
I don't
wife
know what
to a
happens to
pulp.
him. I don't know what to say in that regard, but I hope they're in a better place. And
What
know,
was
that
what
was
was
a very-
his
that was a very
ultra
dark
move? The
day.
Wolverine.
I don't know. Everything
That's
part of
right.
that has kind of exited my memory at that point because it was just really
The
really
Wolverine.
bad.
I remember Chris Benoit. I loved him. He was a great fighter.
I enjoyed him on the screen,
But he was
after that,
French
I was...
Canadian, man. Those people are all motherfucking nuts. You ever heard
throw
Kiss
that out your window, please. Douchebag comes in all sizes and it speaks in every language, and it has every
In
accent.
Quebec,
you
yes,
think
I
of.
know.
This
Yeah.
That's all.
It sounds like I've met a couple already too in the western side of things. Let me tell you, most of
Of
them are
Quebec?
homeless and demand for money, and then yell at you for not giving them money, and then be belligerently drunk because they're upset that they're drunk, but not drunk enough to sit here and figure out their life. Welcome to the homeless in Alberta.
Yeah, Quebec.
Someone who's not French Canadian, you got really upset over that comment.
I'm not.
You really did.
I'm Canadian.
You got a little salty over that.
That's because
Or
I
is
don't.
it you?
I don't
That's
appreciate.
what his daily flavor is, though.
Welcome to Insaniac Hour. Where
I
he doesn't
like to
appreciate
say he's more of
prejudices
like
and
a sea
judgment.
salt.
So yeah, let me throw my
It's an-
salt vigorously
It's
here
an
and there
ever pouring salt.
to balance out the
Well,
ever-growing mountain.
That's the flavor of his tears.
Yeah,
Sea salt is
orphan
his
tears. Salty orphan
Everyone's
tears.
tears are salty.
Yeah, no, Insaniac's tears taste like the ocean, and if you listen,
Man, I hope so. I hope so. That makes me feel better. Thank you.
Ear gets tastier, you'll also
Every
hear
time-
the ocean.
Every time you taste his tears, you think of the 98 Degrees song. I wanna swim like in the ocean. I wanna feel like you in the sea.
Yeah, if you can't tell, Insaniac doesn't sit well with prejudgment. Doesn't go very well.
Well, anyways, you guys want to hear some more parenting advice from someone who sees kids in school every day?
Oh, totally. Please.
Don't give your teenagers smartphones. If you really feel the need to get in touch with them, give them like a dumb phone.
Give them a flip phone.
Yeah,
I have
exactly.
Dumb phone.
I
Dumb
actually
phone,
see
yeah.
a huge difference. Like, I work with grade 9, so it's like half and half that have smartphones and don't. And there's a huge difference in just the way they interact with the world and do learn things. Like,
You
actually
know-
put in effort and learn things.
It just takes one kid to have a job for literally like a month and a half, and they can buy a smartphone.
True. Well, to an extent, they can't necessarily get a plan without a credit card or someone who's 18, but
No,
Freedom.
they can get
Yeah.
freedom.
oh, there
though.
we go. See?
Freedom.
Freedom Mobile.
I'm through Freedom. It's not a
I'm
plan.
also
You just pay it.
Pay as you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
It-
it's not
Well,
for
it
everyone.
makes
But I'm
things
just
harder.
telling you.
Yeah.
Like
It
that-
makes things harder, but at the same time, like it really is a huge difference. The ones who have that access to social media just like at their fingertips, you can tell.
That's bad parenting. I completely agree.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
stick a phone in their face and then you say you learn. I mean, okay, like I love my parents, but they made the worst mistake at giving me a cell phone at 13 because I figured
Oh,
out
absolutely.
I
I would
figured out that you could go to the office and write a form without ever bringing your parents in that say your whatever number is your new number, and all they have to do is call it and verify. And so I made it my cell number, and they called it, and they verified. I just picked up the phone and said, "Yep, this is the house phone. I'm at home. I picked it up." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And all of a sudden, all through high school and the rest of junior high, whenever I skipped school or anything and they called my house phone, it was just my cell phone. Just call my cell phone.
Yeah.
And like I got away with so much shit. My parents didn't know anything that was going on because I every time I get the call, I would just ghost it. And then they got mad at my parents because they're like, "You never pick up the phone, blah blah blah," and all this. And my dad just, "What number do you have?"
That's hilarious.
Oh no.
On a similar note too, up until like actual high school, make your kids do their homework.
Make them. I
Like
don't know if
they
you
need
can.
to actually do it.
You should do it with them, I think is the best way to kind of say
Yeah.
that in a certain
Depends on the
sense, 'cause
age.
my dad could not intimidate me enough to give a shit about my fucking homework. I knew enough in the class to be like, "Oh, you got to do your homework." I don't care. I can choose to pass the class without doing the homework as someone who was aware of the subject. Not everyone's in that state, so you should absolutely sit
No,
with your kids and
and a lot
discuss
of the
with them
kids
and
that
show
don't do
them.
their homework are the kids that are in that state.
Yeah, well, and sometimes you don't have parents, right? So if you're a parent who's not aware, it helps a lot because then you're gonna learn a lot at the same time, right? Because you're learning with your children, and that's
Yeah.
something that you can bond over that a lot of parents I don't think really understand.
Yeah, honestly, absolutely. But yeah, I have so many kids that I don't know. Their parents are constantly like just relying on me to do it with them, and it's like I literally don't have time in the day.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
right.
but you've got to find time,
I'm gonna say 30 to 40 students usually. It's a little much.
right? Like there are 10 students in this class that I work with closely, and we have maybe like half an hour if we're lucky to do homework in a day. It doesn't work.
Yeah, usually in a lot of time, at least when I was a student, I found like doing in-class work, like it was nice and stuff, but for the most part, it still wasn't like effective to actually get any work done. And even then, like when I got home, I wasn't concerned about it really for the most part.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. What other parenting advice would I give people from what I see? Um,
Kids.
don't do it. Don't have kids. There we go. That's the advice.
Best parenting advice you can find.
Yep.
Um, I mean, but then that goes it because that's a slippery slope. Because you could go into. I was gonna say like, don't give kids access to the internet, but that's just you can't do that. Every kid has the
You
internet.
literally can't. They need it for
You
school.
can't. It's impossible.
Yeah, nowadays you kind of Well, nowadays they have a lot of ways to kind of limit in a
You know
certain
what?
sense,
I'm
but
gonna
I'll be
go on a
honest,
limb.
even then it's kind of impossible.
Kids
The
know how to get
internet's
around
made-
it.
Yeah, the internet's
It
made to
exists.
be
There's a
loopholed.
kid who knows how to get around
I'm
it.
gonna tell you right now, don't give your kids anything that actually functions as a normal computer, because then you're just begging for trouble.
Don't give in. I've seen so many parents that give in, especially when their kid is a tantrum piece of shit.
Yeah.
That's just the generation of these kids these days, because their parents are not so great. My parents were alright, even though they were not the best for when I would like, but that's not always up for you to decide, right? That's the point of being a child, is your parents are there for you in different ways.
My parents were weird, but for like 95% of things, I think they did a great job.
I think so too. I'm kind of in the same boat.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah. Like
My
there's a couple
parent-
things that I wish they had done a little differently. Like I have asthma and ADHD that wasn't diagnosed until the last year because they didn't believe me when I said I can't listen in class and I can't breathe half the time. But
Yeah, that's a problem.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that was just a problem with the generation of our parents, is because there's a lot of things that my parents just kind of brushed aside. But I don't call that bad parenting, because that's more
I
just
don't either.
learned. That's more
Yeah.
just learned in the knowledge of the time. What I call bad parenting is like the motherfuckers who decided that they don't want to give their kids a vaccine because they don't believe in the vaccine. It's like, you
See,
know
what-
what?
Yeah, most of them
For me,
are
a lot of this,
vaccinated.
like nowadays, it's
Yes.
most like the fact that the
And you're
parents
talking
nowadays
about
also
vaccinations
still
in
aren't going to have the
general
same.
here, not just
they're-
COVID, right?
Yeah, not
They're
just
not going to
COVID,
have the
just
same
generally.
Yeah.
the same information these days. Like the parents nowadays, they grew up in the school system that we know sucked, but they didn't know that. They just went along with it. These are people like my brother. He's a smart guy, but they weren't aware.
So they
and
could
they
spend 5 minutes of their day and do like real research instead
Yeah,
of
but that's-
believing
they don't-
fucking some idiot on the internet like me. Like I encourage
no, but-
everyone who ever watches this show to
Back-
research
back-
everything we fucking
you
say.
absolutely should. Yeah, 100%.
Like-
Yeah, 100%.
Back then, schooling then was the authority of information. There wasn't anywhere else to research till roughly 20, 30 years
Well,
ago.
Encyclopedias.
Yes, exactly,
But
right.
the
But that was still
encyclopedia was still an
came from
opinion.
a school or
Libraries.
that came from the schools or libraries, right? So you had to go out of your way, and a lot of kids back then, school wasn't made to support learning. It was not. It was made for you to just dump knowledge into so you could throw it on a piece of paper.
Well,
Yeah.
that does support a kind of learning if you're susceptible to it.
If
True.
you only learn in that way,
now you're being too narrow. Like
to the mind to
there are
the
people
several
who
like
do
different
learn
learning
like that.
styles, who's kinesthetic to the writing style. There's many different type of learning. So
But
when
again, that goes
subscribe
back
to just one,
our level of knowledge. Like we didn't
exactly,
understand that there was
that's what I'm
different
saying.
learning styles.
100%.
It
So
came
what I
down
mean is
to-
the parents nowadays are also failing from that same thing, right?
But
That's
I
what I'm
can
pointing at.
argue against that because there were children and there were examples of geniuses in history who found their own learning style. I mean,
Yeah,
it just
absolutely.
wasn't nurtured the way that it's being nurtured now, and it's not
Absolutely.
being put in the forefront. But I would argue that there are examples of people who fostered their own learning in different ways. I mean,
I would absolutely agree.
one of the biggest
I would
ones.
say Insaniac, in a way, you might be overestimating the age of parents right now because, like, the schooling that you and I did was much more geared towards those different styles of learning,
Oh,
and it was
absolutely,
very
yeah.
different.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. That's what I mean, right?
I know
I
a
have the
lot
knowledge
of
I
people
have.
our age that are parents to like 6, 7, 8, 10-year-olds right now. So
Well, that's what I mean is like I know the knowledge that I came from, and I know that it wasn't very good. So what I can say is that the people who've had the knowledge that I also learned from are probably lacking on certain things, right? Now I've taken the time to learn other things that I'm lacking on. I still don't know all the things, so that's why I love this talk show. It helps me learn a lot. It's really great. But
true.
that's something that these people might have not grown up with, right? They didn't have the ability, and back then, if we look back in Canadian history in a specific sense, residential schools did not foster independent learning at all. At all, at all. So that shit was literally stamped out. So to
Really?
expect a generation to go forward after that and
Much
think
more
that
than a generation.
that's the I know, but several to
They
say
stopped
one
the-
and then several, right? From that predecessor, using that as a backbone for the knowledge of how we built our schools. Now it's changed. You're absolutely right in that regard. But back then, the people who were now, parents, I don't know how, and not every parent's the same, right? So this is a very generalized statement. So, I'm not trying to set it up in a specific way. But because of that, it's led to not everyone being well aware, not
I
so
mean,
versed. Now we have the
you-
internet and great tools to research from.
You
but-
can argue that the level of knowledge and the curation of knowledge in certain areas, and especially the accessibility to it, definitely probably has some sort of effect on how someone parents. But I kind of disagree because you have parents who are learned or who are established and well-adjusted people in society who still are pieces of shit to their children.
And
So, like,
those,
I would argue more, man, that the way you raise your children is more the learned behavior of the way you look at the world. Like people always I've seen more often than not, rather than nurture everything their child wants to do, which is always great to see. I more often than not see parents reflect what they want in a society into their child, and so they will reflect the values and they will reflect the way that they want to see the world run in their child, and that's why you
absolutely.
get and like in one sense it's
If
learned
I
behavior,
may.
but then as the child grows, that becomes the child's personality. Will the child become
Yeah.
susceptible to it and basically fold to your will, or will they rebel and turn into Insaniac?
See, and
And-
that's where it comes to the now realization of where we are nowadays. That this comes from cultural and traditional failings and norms that don't support a conducive society going into the future. Right? As a culture, you should understand that ritualistic sacrifice after the 1300s wasn't really helpful. So maybe we should stop doing it. And now maybe
I think the
fetishes
last
Yeah, we
also
haven't
not
tried
so
recently.
helpful.
I think the last ritualistic
So,
sacrifice
as
was in
time
the
goes
1100s,
on
but
and you
yeah,
come-
okay.
Regardless of my
That
point.
depends on where you're looking.
I was
That
Regardless
gonna
of my
also
say,
point,
depends on-
as you come from a culture and you realize that their traditions are non-relevant to the modernistic times, it's time to adjust. That doesn't mean forgetting the traditions at all. It means adjusting to new traditions. Like I know in one of my friends who I
you
work with
lost me,
talked
you
about
lost me.
how did I lose you?
If you're talking about
I
traditions,
feel like that was
No, you
yes,
lost me too.
cultural traditions.
Okay, so
Okay.
explain how that relates to
So when you're
parenting. Then what
raised
do
in
you,
a
like?
when you're raised in a society, you learn the cultural traditions of where you're learned from. So Canada, you learn from the cultural traditions
Okay.
of Canada.
Yeah. As you grow, cultural traditions from the certain area or your culture around you.
Yes.
Yeah, our learned behaviors.
And
yes. Okay.
and this goes into how you raise children. Now, say in like for one friend I know who's a Canadian, and he was being closer to someone who's of Chinese tradition. For their tradition, it's accustomed to bring a gift to your spouse's parents
yeah.
from your culture. To do so otherwise is an insult, and that doesn't mean that it's conducive, but that doesn't mean to that
there's
person
a
that you're
culture
insulting
clash
them,
there.
right?
I get it.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
So that's what I mean is that comes with as we evolve as a society, learning where those things are causing problems and learning to readjust instead of being like, oh, you're insulting me because I'm not giving you something. Well, no, maybe I just didn't know that, or now that I do know that, maybe I just wasn't get something that you wanted, or that's in one specific
Disagree.
example.
I
There can be
actually
many that are
disagree because that shows good parenting. Being able to understand a
be
culture
rigid in
clash.
traditions.
No, to understand you're doing a culture clash and then eventually learn to the point where you either share your culture to the point you reach an understanding. No, if you have a bad parent, someone who's been parented badly, they will just force their traditions down your throat. They will look at that. They will look at that immigrant and say, "No, you shouldn't do that. That's not.
I'm saying
that's
they're
not
hand in
correct."
hand. That's all I'm saying.
I agree that they are hand in hand, but that's only if
But you're absolutely right. It's a general statement. There are specific situations where it's not going to fit. 100%.
I just think more that that's based on again that comes down to like how
but
they're
it's a
raised.
unique situation, right?
If you have
Absolutely,
someone
but
who's-
that comes
if you-
from the
if you
same
were
thing,
raised-
right? It's a cycle.
If you're raised to be accepting or to understand, like you're more likely to to basically be more susceptible to other people's culture. If you're not raised to be that way and raised that your way is right, like it doesn't matter who you are. As soon as someone comes to your culture or comes to your area, they're going to literally they're going to just hammer it down your throat that what you're doing is wrong and that's not how it's done here.
That depends if you move past broken
Ronan
traditions and you
Utreris.
become more aware of these different things, right?
Ronan
You
Ut-
don't have to. Sorry, I'm seeing the comment. I do want to read it out, but I want to continue
Well,
your
then
line
you
of thought
read
at the
it
same
out.
time. I don't want to just. I will once I finish what you're saying, because I want to follow what you're saying. Just because that goes back to the same point, right? Just because you're raised in a certain way, you're gonna raise your kids that way, and you're absolutely right. Where there will be a culture that'll come into another one, and they might clash and shove their culture down in their throat in a certain sense. But that comes with being aware that hey, my culture is different, and this culture is different. They might not like it or they might not consent to me giving them different cultural ideas, but that doesn't mean you have to abandon your culture or treat it disrespectfully, or that doesn't mean somebody else not following that culture is being disrespectful to you.
You're right, but that's not what we're talking about.
No, but it
We're
leads
talking
one
about-
to another, where your parent being a bad parent comes from learning bad traditions
But
and
it also
putting
comes
that on
from
your children.
lack education. If you
That's-
live
yeah,
if you live in a
absolutely
place where someone gives you a gift when they're new and that's a sign of aggression to you, but you're from a place where you're giving a gift when you meet them and that's a sign of community, all of a sudden
Yeah.
because you are not going out of your way to find out more about their culture, are you being the aggressor? Are you like
No, but that's where it comes to the now realization of, okay, like understanding why is this person giving this to me? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Can I learn more from them? Are they trying to be harmful or are they trying to not, right? It's approaching it from a sense of, not everyone's trying to kill you. Sometimes that happens, but that doesn't mean you should sit there and try to expect every threat to kill you. That's called being paranoid. And anyways, yeah, Ronan Rutris. I do want to hear
please,
the comment.
are you going to read the comment?
There really should be a generic test to become a parent. You should get tested. I'm assuming that's what it's supposed to be. All through school, through post-secondary drivers, premarital counsel, etc. Why not parenting? I kind
fucking
of
agree.
in a certain sense.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna stop. I'm not even gonna tiptoe around that
definitely
one. I
think
fucking
either-
Oh, that's
agree.
fair.
I definitely think you should
You
have
know
some
what?
kind of a test, but I don't think there's any way you can
Yes.
stop people from having children.
Yes, you
Absolutely
can.
not.
Oh yeah, you can.
No.
You just
Yeah,
can't
just
not
like
in
for me, I don't think
chemically
government
inhibit
should
those
be in.
kids. put something
Yeah,
in
well,
every
then it's
mail so that it stops
Not
him
in a
from.
morally
And then welcome to
acceptable
raping
way.
the entire culture of
It's
a
called
society.
Brave New World, guys. Aldous Huxley came
Okay.
up with it in the
Yeah,
1920s.
force your ideas on the people. It'll be okay. I'm sure
My
it'll go well.
ideism, it's just a view of the future, and we might as well take
Mhm.
that step. Otherwise, we're gonna start.
yeah.
Otherwise, we're gonna wake up tomorrow and there'll be idiocracy, and there'll be just a bunch of idiots everywhere, and there'll be hundreds of millions of them, and there'll be nothing we can do. And they'll start using fucking
People who
energy
aren't
drink to.
aware of things are just not well educated. There's not really an idiot. To say so does a disservice. Yes, people are
But it
unintelligent,
doesn't
but that doesn't
matter
mean
if
they're
they're well
incapable of learning.
educated or not. There's going to be so many people that don't care if they're educated. They're not going to sit there and listen to you tell them that.
That's the
They're
point
just
of a
gonna
good
walk
teacher.
away.
That's the point of a good teacher. And Sarah, I would say, is a great teacher in that regard. Not every student's going to listen to you, but every person is going to learn from themselves. If they fall on their face
It's
and they hurt themselves, oh, maybe I shouldn't fall on my
But
face
it's
because
not
I hurt
about-
myself. It's a self-employed
not about
lesson that you
teaching them.
figure out.
it's about preventing
No,
the
it's-
the stupid people that had them to beginning with from raising
No.
them.
No, the stupid people will make stupid mistakes and they'll become less stupid. That's how it works when nature literally solves that for you.
Because it hasn't happened in the last 100 years.
That's because our society's built around where you're not going to fall on your face and suddenly an alligator is going to eat you. We now have streets, we now have sidewalks, we have a place where people are a lot more safe, and now we have all these emergency settings, and it's for a reason. But if you look in the evolution of modern society, did you know you actually produce the same amount of adrenaline when you're getting fired or your spouse is yelling at you as to when you would be chased by a predator? Literally the exact same amount. Because it's the modern day version of comparing a visible threat that you can see. Adrenaline is produced to have you ready to fight or flight. That's how the body responds to threats, perceived or otherwise.
I don't understand what's this got to do with stupid people raising children.
I know you don't, because you're gonna figure it out too. You gotta fall on your face to learn, and that's how it works, right?
But
I
people,
also don't understand.
no, you're assuming again that people are both
Am I?
A, intelligent, and B, are naturally going to learn from their mistakes. You have to
I know
throw
people are
those
stupid.
ideas out the window because it never
No.
happens.
I know people aren't. Individuals are intelligent, but as society, we're stupid. I'm
By
well
the
aware
way,
of this.
Ronan
I don't
Utrecht-
have assumptions.
child benefits for approved parents. Now you're just thinking Starship Troopers.
That's an
To have
interesting. That's an
children
interesting idea.
must
Well, that's
be
an
a
interesting
civilian.
idea.
That's an interesting idea.
That
Absolutely.
doesn't bring up
If
the
you-
same moral problems as literally stopping people from having children.
Yeah, but that's a better way of doing it, right? It makes you
Yeah.
it gives you an incentive to be a better parent.
Actually,
It
you
gives
know
you an
what?
incentive to do it.
Now thinking about it, you're right. That's actually a really great idea. Because then if
Yeah.
you're an unapproved parent, then you don't get any benefits. No way, no
Exactly.
AISH, no child support, nothing. You're an unapproved parent. Fuck you. But you're approved. Everything.
I can tell you right now, though. Now that I
open
can,
to you.
But
I
then,
can tell
of
you right
course,
now that
the
that
problem comes down to,
parent
like,
is
who
gonna
gets to
that parent is
what
now
are the criteria? Who gets to
That's true.
say what the right way to raise a
And
child
then
is?
Unplanned Parenthood would just start booming.
I was gonna say I can tell you that right now. Then you're gonna have children who are gonna be raised to hate the government because they were left abandoned by people they thought
because
were
they're-
supposed to
Yeah.
support them.
I'm sorry. What?
Because these unapproved parents are gonna teach the kids that
Are
they
there
were
people
left.
that
government
aren't
option.
raised to hate the government? Don't you hate the government?
I don't hate the government. I don't trust the government. There's a difference.
Sir
Okay, but
Jeremy,
here's
do
the
you hate the
problem.
government?
They suck. They suck.
They
a lot.
suck. They suck a lot.
Yeah, they
that
suck
doesn't mean
a
I hate them.
I mean, I just
Just because
wanted
something
to,
sucks
I
doesn't mean you
just,
have to
suck
I
hate
just
it.
more
wanted to
now
see
than
where the
they've
line
ever
in the
had
sand
before,
was,
in my
okay?
experience.
I mean, I
just
totally agree,
wanted
they
to
suck.
see where the line in the sand was.
But yeah, people already hate the government, absolutely. But now you're gonna have people who are building
Thank
their
you,
children.
Ronan. People do already
You're absolutely
hate the
right, Ronan.
government.
Exactly. But now, if you make a setting where people are gonna specifically hate the government, now you're gonna raise kids who specifically hate the government, not just casually hate it because the system's not working.
I mean, everyone hates the government in Russia. And look, they lived with it for like 60 years, and they didn't even They didn't even try to overthrow it. They let it blow up on its own in communism.
That's because that's kind of how it is. You gotta let people fall on their face. That's what happens with America right now. They're falling
So
on their
again,
face.
guys, here's the thing: if we're putting this kind of system into place, though, seriously, who makes the decisions of what the right way to raise a child is, or what makes a parent
Yeah.
approve?
You know, I know it's
No,
funny,
absolutely
Sarah,
right.
and the reason why I did this, this topic, you know what makes this really funny?
What?
people like us who don't have kids.
Right?
They're the ones that make the decisions. So-
Unfortunately, it should come to a certain collective council. I would say, in my opinion.
we are a collective council. People,
We are, yeah.
People who are
Yeah.
participants of the subject that
Unbiased.
matter. We are not participants to the subject that matter, except for a second
No,
Exactly.
but at
opinion.
least some of us want to be parents in the
So-
future,
Yes,
right? So
but that doesn't mean we're gonna have imparted wisdom of what it means to be a parent in the moment.
Insaniac's
As
gonna
much as we
have,
can
like,
speculate.
8 kids.
I hope not. I do
That
not
would
want
be a
that many
lot.
I
kids.
hope you have octuplets your first time.
no, that would be
I-
horrific.
I hope you know that we're gonna come torture you then.
Who decides what the teacher teaches the kids? Same thing.
Well, that's the point of a unified curriculum, right? People
Honest-
vote on
yeah.
it and you
5
discuss it.
people
Right? It's
who
the
have
same thing.
nothing to do with this.
But then you have people who have to enforce these rules, and if the rules seem stupid, as we are realizing today, stupid rules are stupid. Why would I follow it
Yeah.
if it doesn't make fucking sense?
Yes, stupid
Stupid
rules
rules
are
stupid.
stupid.
Stupid rules are
Words of
stupid.
advice from
So this is a correct
Maniac.
statement.
Sometimes when you make laws that abuse people, that doesn't mean you follow through with the law.
Who
Yeah.
watches the watchers?
exactly.
This is the question. We ask you, viewers, minions, tell us in the comments who watches the watchers.
But
Hashtag Watchmen.
I still think it stems to the parents. I still think it stems to
It's
the
a-
way
it's a
a
vicious
child
cycle,
is
in my
raised.
opinion.
I still
It
think
absolutely
I
does.
still think it goes down. Like if the parent is going to be an uneducated, unwilling, belligerent piece of crap, unless the
You mean
child,
like a normal person in our
unless the-
society today?
unless the child decides that it's not going to be like that, which does
Yeah,
happen.
the child
quite
is going to
often.
decide for their
Oh, yeah.
parents how not to do things. So it's going to go well.
Sometimes children grow up and they realize at a young age, or like in their 20s, that their parents were.
I'm gonna be honest. I realized that too at a young age, and I didn't want to be abused, so I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah,
That was the difference.
I think
And
that's
now, as an adult,
fairly
I'm
normal, I
aware
think,
enough
yeah.
to sit here and say what I want to say, because no one's gonna fucking stop me otherwise. Welcome to the talk show, because silence breeds contempt.
yeah.
It does. That's why you're so angry all the time.
I'm an angsty teen. Haven't you figured that out yet? Who's like in his 20-somethings?
10 years
I
late.
haven't grown out of that one yet. You should know this. We've been through this already.
You know, it actually fits.
I should go grab my Blink 182 shirt and send it to you.
I still have all my black clothes. They haven't outgrown them, guys.
Education and nutrition start with the mother. It could be the father too. I have a couple
It's-
friends who
yeah.
are single dads. It depends
There's
who
a lot
raises
of
the kid.
yeah.
Yeah.
I hear what you're
Nutrition is
saying.
something that should be taught at school, and I'll be honest, something that I've noticed going into elder
Well,
care
that's the
homes
other
and
thing.
seeing
How many
healthcare
parents
works,
don't teach
nutrition
their
is
kids
garbage.
shit because they expect Sarah to teach them?
Yeah, but that's also because the schools don't know what they're doing sometimes either, right? And Sarah's
That's the
stuck by a
point.
curriculum. She's her arm is literally
True.
tied by what has to be taught. It's
You
not
think-
up to her
And
some days.
You
Also,
think-
like, let's not forget what is not allowed to be taught, because there
That's
are
also
things
true,
that aren't allowed to be taught, and
Which,
it's
in my
stupid.
opinion, is silly. Yeah, they're not. There shouldn't be things that are allowed to be taught. You should be able to teach things with risk and reward. That's the point of being a teacher and a
Could
student.
you imagine, like, being so embarrassed to talk about sex to your kid that you're going to trust a 20-some-year-old stranger to tell
Right?
your kid about the size of their penis and what happens when it gets erect?
Doesn't make any sense, man.
Not
Yeah.
one fucking bit.
There's the other 5% of things my
Not
parents didn't do a good
one.
job teaching me. My mom sort of assumed that the school was going to teach me, but no, it was a Christian school. They did nothing.
They teach you
So-
to pray. That's-
They
I'm
just
pretty
expect
sure
you
that's
to
the most-
figure out by the time it was halfway too late. Because then
Pretty
they'd have
much,
another
or
one.
expected your parents to teach you, but mine didn't.
All they did was tell you to wear your purity ring and make sure you get married first.
Pretty much.
Oh boy,
And then everyone
man,
got
why does
pregnant.
this seem like it's
so
going
it
back to
grew
South
up for
Park
them.
again?
The purity rings don't work! The purity rings don't work!
You gotta get your purity ring.
Oh no! Babies
Oh.
still happen if you put on a purity ring.
I had
Man.
one in all 11 of my fingers. You only have 10. All 11 of my fingers and it still didn't work.
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy I didn't have to deal with that. Boy,
Yeah,
Oh.
I would have no words other than like, you want me to wear a mood ring? What?
Get
I
a
can get
mood
these at
ring
the store.
piercing on the tip of your dick.
I could literally get these at the store.
You go get your Prince album.
Oh my goodness. Baby, Prince Albert's in the mood. I can tell he's green.
I'm
You want to
pretty
know the
happy.
other thing that my school decided? Either my school decided it, or it was highly recommended to my parents by the school. But I'm the right age that I should have gotten an HPV vaccine when I was in grade 9. Someone decided, no, these are good kids. They don't need that. They're not gonna have sex or get STIs. No.
Oh boy. Oh
I'm
boy.
really mad about it, actually.
And
Oh
Like,
boy.
thank
HPV
God you
kills
got
women.
married young, because that would have been a 100% infection rate.
Honestly, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I'm pissed about that. So when John said get your kids vaccinated, all of the vaccines,
Yeah, vaccines
not
are
just the
important.
ones that you think they're
Immunizations are
need.
All
questionable.
473.
Organized
Yes.
religion's hilarious. All right, so
Oh.
we're getting close to the end. What was our list? We had. what
We
was
had a
our-
list. I
We
didn't
had
write anything
we
down.
did. We had a bad parenting list of bad parenting.
I definitely
advice.
didn't have a list.
Give
I-
all your kids smartphones.
No.
all your
no,
kids
no,
have
no,
smartphones.
It was what was the
All the
first one?
smartphones. Smartphones. That was the first one. That's the only
No,
one.
it wasn't. That
It
was the
was.
second one.
It was
The only one
No.
that matters.
no
Smartphones.
smartphones.
It was the
first-
second or
Smartphones.
third one.
Have as many
Number
kids as you want to
one.
fix your marriage.
Yes, number 1 was fixing your marriage by having babies.
Learn with
Yeah.
your children.
No, we're listing the good advice we figured out.
Yeah, we're listening to
Not the
good
bad
advice.
Are
we
we?
had.
And okay, guys, that's what it is. I was
So
confused.
we
so
had-
yeah,
we had-
smartphones. Get your kids smartphones.
Kids
Only
won't fix your
smartphones.
marriage. Don't give them smartphones.
No, we said we're not giving them things to fix. So don't
um,
give them smartphones.
Don't. What else? did
Learn
we
with your
say?
children.
Don't have
Do
kids.
homework or
Learn-
learn. Yeah, don't
learn
have
with your
kids.
children.
Yeah. Make sure you take a test to see if you have kids.
Yeah, take the
Get
egg
your
test.
kids
What was that at
vaccinated.
school? You had to get like an egg or you had to take care of an egg or
Do
feed a
the
sack.
asshole test. If you walk into a room, go into 3 rooms and try to find the asshole. If it's you 3 times in a row, don't have kids.
Like it.
I feel like
Yeah.
that test answers itself.
It's self an answer.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Good advice that isn't relevant.
It was completely relevant.
Yes.
'Cause
Assholes.
if you're an
inform
asshole,
parents.
you don't want to raise a kid because you'll just make them an asshole.
Or if you're an asshole, you want to raise a kid because you want them to be assholes. Don't you want that the shit to spread?
That actually does have potential, unfortunately. Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Anyway,
I
that being said,
don't remember any
No,
more.
the
I am
biggest thing-
sorry that
the biggest thing
brewers
is
had
love your
nothing
kid.
better to do.
Love
but I'm
them no
glad
matter
you
what.
spent it all